Night one of the NBA draft is done, and the Pacers did not add anybody. Kind of as expected. We'll talk about what did not, what could happen, what did not happen, what they could do with their 36th pick, which is now the sixth next pick, other transactions that matter for the Pacers. We're getting all of it today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, oh my goodness, the NBA draft's first round is over. There were 7 trades. That doesn't even account for signings that happened before it. None of those trades involved the Pacers. They did not do anything in the first round. Could they have? Should they have? What can they do today for day two? What else happened yesterday that matters to the Pacers? We have a lot to cover. Transaction season is upon us, and there's always a lot to break down when this stuff happens, even when the team we're talking about doesn't actually do anything. The Pacers did actually do something yesterday, not draft related. Obi Toppin got a qualifying offer from the Pacers. We'll talk about that as well today, what that means in practice, because I got a lot of questions about it. People who clearly don't understand it, which is on me for not explaining it very well. Okay, we will start with the draft, though. That is the big news of the day, and we'll go in this order. We'll do what the Pacers didn't do, what they maybe could have done, what they're about to do, and then we'll get to what else mattered and happened from Wednesday. So what they didn't do is anything. They did not trade into this draft. They did not make a pick. If you listen to Eddie Garrison and I talked about it yesterday, we did come up with reasons why they could do it, and why if they did it, we'd go, yep, we get it. But the conclusion we both had was there is no losing path for the Pacers in this draft. And given that reality, they already are going to have, assuming they re-sign Obi Toppin, and we'll talk about Obi later. If they don't, this could change a little bit. But assuming they re-sign Obi, they already have 11 guys, and one of those guys will not be playing, most likely on a night-to-night basis this season. Right now, that looks like it would be Jarris Walker, but you never know. If that's already the case, and maybe 12 guys who should play if Jalen Smith opts in, anyone you draft is not playing. Is it worth giving up assets to get someone who's going to develop very slowly? That is for the Pacers to decide, and they decided potentially, I don't know what trade offers they did have or did not have, or if they even could have moved into the first round. They did not. They opted to not do that with established depth, right? Their second unit's already a bunch of young guys, and this being perceived as a bad draft, that makes sense to me, right? That is a reality that makes sense. Looking in the 20s specifically is where I would start here. So what they didn't do is anything, right? They did not trade in. Could they have? What trades were actually made? What picks were actually moved? The Suns, who were long reported to be trading, did trade 22. Everybody was asking, you get the Pacers trade all their picks and get it? Well, the answer was no, because they didn't have a good enough thing for the Suns. 36 is okay, but the rest of that package stinks, and they, maybe they could have traded future seconds for it. The Nuggets ended up doing that for 28 and a lot of other future second rounders. So that is more valuable than what the Pacers could have offered to get to 22. And the Suns actually picked at 28, right? So that first rounder has value to them. The 8th pick got traded. Rob Dillingham and Anthony Edwards are on the same team. I think I'm going to become a Timberwolves fan. That's sick. Doesn't matter for the Pacers. 14th pick got traded to the Wizards. That doesn't matter. 24 got traded, and the Knicks are fast ending. We'll talk about Bridges and Anunoby for like 2 seconds later in this podcast. But the Knicks traded 24, but they traded it in a package that got them 26, right? So that was really not trading back where the Pacers could have gotten involved, because they got 26. They got a pick right there, and they had pick 25 too. So the value had to be at least a little different in calculation, because they know no one's going to jump them for their guy, because they have the pick in between. So another one where the Pacers' value probably can't get there. I think it was 26 and 51. The Pacers had 50 and 49. They could have done future seconds, but that's not going to do it. The one trade that you'll wonder about, if you were somebody who said the Pacers should have gone into the first round at 26, and at 26, all the guys Ben Pfeiffer and I talked about were still on the board, funnily enough. 2 of them went in the next 3 picks. The Thunder jumped up to 26. This is the only trade that I think if you think the Pacers missed an opportunity, and I don't, to be clear, I don't think they did anything incorrect or dumb on Wednesday night. If you are someone who does think that, you'll look at the 26th pick trade. The Wizards traded that pick to the Thunder for 5 second rounders of decent quality. that, the Pacers have extra seconds. Like, could they have traded 36 and 4 of their future picks? I think they have a Sacramento one, a Portland one, a Dallas one, maybe like a fake Miami one next year. I forget the other one. They have a bunch, right? Could they have done all of those to get 26? Should they have done that? That's for you to decide. I kind of lean no. Dylan Jones, someone I love, went with that pick. 2 picks later, Ryan Dunn, a guy I like and a lot of fans went. So if you think they should have gotten those guys right now, yeah, okay. Saving those for a better draft or a future transaction, potentially more valuable to the Pacers, and maybe they were trying to and were not able to get this. Who knows? But that's the only could have thing that I think is interesting for the Pacers in this draft is pick 26 specifically. A lot of the other picks I thought could be traded. Eddie Garrison and I talked about the Knicks yesterday. That did happen. That we thought the Timberwolves pick could be moved, but then the Timberwolves did something crazy, completely different. I did not expect that to be their draft strategy. And then the Celtics are the other one at 30. They did make their pick, and I did not know at the time that Kristaps Porzingis was going to be missing time to start their season. So now all of a sudden they need other avenues to add talent or change the talent for their team. So a lot of changing dynamics, even between Eddie and I recording and the actual draft happening with the big Knicks trade, transactions all over the place. It's that time of year. So the Pacers did not do anything, and I think the only trade you could look at and say, could they have done that, is the 26th pick, and they didn't. And I don't think that is a missed opportunity in any way, even though I actually like the player who went at 26. What are they about to do now? So night one is over. First round picks are gone. A lot of mocks did pretty well. I just tankathons like in my browser because I did, I had to look at the odds last year and stuff, whatever. Their mock draft, I think, is like a compilation one where they use a bunch to get them. Of their first round guys on there, I know this isn't a legit mock draft, but I think the only guys who didn't get picked that are on it are Kyle Filipowski, Tyler Kolek, Johnny Furphy. Oh, and Tyler Smith of the first round. So 26 of them did get picked. So that's a pretty, if you're looking for a place to see who's still available, that's a place to go. And then the 4 guys who did get picked in the first round who aren't that group are 31, 33, and 36 on that list. I can't tell who I'm missing, but and 49, Dylan Jones. There we go. So that's the 4 guys to make it easy for you to follow along if you want to yourself. But that's now what's next for the Pacers. They did not pick in the first round. They did not even have a chance really at any of the picks that happened, given what the other trades were, except for maybe one. But what they're about to do is pick 36. Chad Buchanan was, smiling through his teeth a bit talking about this, but he did mention this when they actually talked about the 2-night draft. He said, I'm trying to find the quote now, you said a story. He said, we look at it as we have the 6th pick in the draft on Thursday night. So they have the 6th pick tomorrow. If they rank their best 6 players left, they get one of them, whoever that could be. So here are just some names, right? 2 guys who are in the green room, which is I believe top 24, maybe 25 this year because Edie didn't go. And teams send in names for the rankings because they want it to be the guys getting picked at the draft. So of the 30 picks, only 2 green room guys didn't get picked, but that means 2 did not get picked. Kyle Filipowski is one of them from Duke, the center. And look, if Jalen Smith opts out, not the worst idea for the Pacers ever. Tyler Smith from the G League Ignite was the other one. Oh, no, he was not the green room guy. I'm sorry. Tyler Smith was another mocked first round guy who didn't get picked. The other green room guy who didn't get picked was Johnny Furphy from Kansas, the Australian. Good rebounder, knows for the ball. I don't know much about his game, but he's a wing who's 19 and a half years old. We'll see what the Pacers decide to do. So those 2 are obviously among the potential guys at 36. Tyler Smith, of course, as well. Bobby Klintman, I still don't know if I'm saying his name right. I apologize. The guy they reportedly had interest in last year did not get picked. Jonathan Bogbo, one of Tony East's draft crushes, and a guy that Ben Pfeiffer and I talked about, still on the board. Tyler Kolek, somewhat mocked in the first round by some places. Really good passer for a Marquette. Still there. I don't know if that's a very good Pacers pick, but he's still there. Kevin McCullough is still there. That alone, I just named 7 guys, I believe. It's guaranteed that 2 of them will be on the board when the Pacers are up. And Adam Bona, who I like, could add to that list. Isaiah Crawford, who was one of the 3 guys I talked about when I did the podcast with Ben Pfeiffer looking at targets, was still there. 2 of my 3 guys got picked in the first round. That makes me feel better about that, although maybe I shot too high with the talent. Although Dylan Jones, I don't know if anybody thought he'd be a first rounder. Ryan Dunn makes some sense. So those are some of the top guys available. You can pick your favorite draft coverage person. They have a list of the best still available because there's a lot of time to soak this in now instead of just flowing right in to round 2. I do think there'll be TV interest in round 2. Bronny's still there. Still some interesting players. So We'll see what the Pacers do at 36. One of those names, maybe two, maybe three of the names I just said, guaranteed to be there. We'll see what the Pacers end up doing tomorrow, and we'll break that down. Let's talk about some other draft stuff for the Pacers. What else mattered in the draft that happened to them? Obi Toppin's qualifying offer. Plenty more to get to from night one of the NBA draft. But before we get to any of that stuff, we have to talk about Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. And it's a great way to get tickets to all of your favorite sporting events because the prices of the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch at the start of the game. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I should know. I used it before, and it was fantastic. I got to go see the Liberty, play the Dallas Wings last summer. Got the tickets the day of the game. Could see the seats view on the app. The price I saw was the price I ended up paying, and I felt good about it all because they have their lowest price guarantee, which means you get 110% of the difference credited if you find lower priced tickets somewhere else. It's the best way to buy tickets. No guesswork, no BS. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKDOWNNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account on Game Time, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, jump on over to Locked On Wolves. Holy smokes. The Minnesota Timberwolves got the 8th pick. What? That was the craziest trade of the night to me. The craziest trade of the night before will be our second listen in the second segment because it's an important lead-in and something we'll talk about now. But Rob Dillingham, one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite prospects in this draft, is now on Anthony Edwards' team. I'm so psyched. That is so sick. A lot of the top of the draft elsewhere was as expected, or at least chalky in most places. I think Buzelis falling to 11 was interesting to some people. Dalton Connect falling to 17. I was never really a fan of him, but you can score like that. Maybe you'll have a role in the NBA, but mostly normal-ish to me, top lottery or so of the draft, with trades coming right before Malcolm Brogdon to DC. Pacers and Wizards had trade talks around him when he was with the Pacers. That's where I want to go now. What else happened around the league that the Pacers care about or think about, or a move that happened that made me go, the Pacers, that made me think about the Pacers in some way. We'll start with that one. Brogdon is on the Wizards. Remember, when he got traded to the Celtics from the Pacers, I believe he had a choice between DC, Boston, and Toronto and chose the Celtics. Well, now he's with DC, so that's all settled. Denny Avdia, who could have made sense as a logical Pacers target, is now with the Blazers as a part of that trade. In terms of real tangible stuff for the Pacers to actually care about, one, OG Anunoby has agreed to a 5-year, $212 million deal with the Knicks. That was per Woj. Player option, trade kicker, the works. So one, now you guys can stop asking me about that because it was never going to happen anyway, and now it really can't. That's a very strong price for Anunoby, but what it takes to keep him. And now the cap space teams move on to something else, and the Pacers, who couldn't have got him without a very specific set of circumstances occurring, also move on to something else, even though they weren't going to get OG Anunoby anyway. But you see that price flash across the screen, and I was driving when that signing got leaked by Woj, and I only bring that up to say, when I saw that happen, I don't think like Jarris Walker becoming OG Anunoby is a very, 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 very high-end outcome for Jarris Walker. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not even comparing the players, but players of that size and defensive skill level have that kind of value. And that's why if I'm running the Pacers, which I'm not, like, it would take a ton for me to trade Jarris Walker. If there's a chance he turns into a guy who's a $40 million a year player because of his defense almost exclusively, and he's a good offensive player, he can really shoot it, but like, that's crazy valuable. So I can't believe it, but I saw that contract and I was like, man, it would take a lot to pry Jarris Walker for me if I'm the Pacers, but also they got to find a way to play the guy to develop him to that level. Either way, OG Anunoby is not coming to the Pacers. That was the pipiest of pipe dreams. That's not even a phrase. The whole time anyway. The second note I have in here, Obi Toppin got a qualifying offer. We'll talk about that in the third segment, what it specifically means for the Pacers. But Obi Toppin tendered, I reported this yesterday, a qualifying offer from the Pacers. They submitted it. He is now a restricted free agent starting in June, assuming he and the Pacers don't agree to terms earlier than that. They can do that. They probably won't. There's no real benefit to going early with that, like there was with Siakam, but Obi Toppin officially a restricted free agent. We'll get to more on that in a second. Nick Claxton agreed to a deal. That might sound stupid. Why does this relate to the Pacers? Let me tell you. Nick Claxton got 4 years, $100 million. I think it's $96 million with like some guarantee nonsense in there. I forget who reported that it got to $100 million with some bonuses, but isn't actually it. Yes, that was Shams who had that. So I think Myles Turner's probably better than Nick Claxton. So register this contract right now. Myles Turner, free agent next year, rising cap environment. Myles Turner got his extension last time. So his current contract pays him 17, 18 million per year, but that is not accurate because he got the huge bump on the renegotiation 2 years ago. It's really closer to like he got 27 million added per year, 28-ish. Now Claxton getting 25 million a year. If Turner's better, he's going to point to that and say, hey, I want more than that per year. And I think if you're looking for analogs, that's the first one of the new CBA of centers getting a deal. I want Valanciunas is not even close to as good as Claxton or Turner, but I'll be curious where he comes in at. But Claxton, a good player, a very good center. I think the Pacers and Myles Turner should look at that and go, what's going on there? Jacoby Walter, he went to the Raptors. Why does that matter? That was the Pacers pick. 19th overall pick, Jacoby Walter to the Toronto Raptors. Everybody can track his career now like maniacs to see, did the Pacers mess this up? 29. The Pacers also traded that pick to Toronto in that trade. And then Toronto flipped it to Utah. That pick became Isaiah Collier. That guy was at one point mocked as like the number one pick in this draft by certain people. That's going to be crazy. He went 29 to the Jazz. So if you are interested in tracking who got selected, the Pacers traded away picks. Does anyone remember the traded away 2020 first-round pick for Brogdon? If you remember who it was, congrats, you win brownie points for me. RJ Hampton out of the league. We'll see what happens with these two first. The Pacers sent away. But Jacoby Walter and Isaiah Collier are the guys for you to care about there. So this is now my notes about the trades the Pacers didn't make, right? 26 and 51 was the price for 24. Could the Pacers have done 36 and 50 and a future second and outbid that? Probably not. 26 has a lot more value than 36, right? So I put after that. And then if you think about what the Pacers would have gotten, right? The difference between pick 36 and a late first, just the extra year before restricted free agency matters a great deal, right? That's the biggest benefit of this. Even if you look back at this, and this was what Eddie and I talked about yesterday, the talent gap between 20 and 40 may be very negligible this year. You know, there's a big tier of guys. So you're not like desperate to give up a bunch of assets to move up, but there is actual value. There's a reason that the rounds are rounds. It's not just picks 1 through 60. The first round ends and the second round starts. And the first round pick 30 is a 4-year rookie scale contract with the first 2 years guaranteed and then 2 team options and then restricted free agency. So you get all that team control and 4 years before restricted free agency. The 31st pick, the latest you can get restricted free agency is after 3 years. And you have to negotiate that deal with a second round pick exception. It's just different, right? That value's higher. How much higher? Maybe not that much. If the player stinks, it's not that valuable. But in fact, it's not valuable at all because then you run into like the Jalen Smith decline team option situation. So that's what the value really is. And so that's when I was typing in my notes, like, is that really worth it to like outbid this price? Probably not. Right? Especially for Pascal running for 4 years, like that extra year could be nice. But again, probably not. 5 seconds for 26 was the only one that made me go, I already said this, but I really wanted to throw in that note. And then Ryan Dunn went 28th. And I typed that down because I know a lot of fans were very interested in Ryan Dunn. Some considered him the best defender in the draft. No longer available. Obviously, at 36, he went 28 to the Phoenix Suns. Perfect. Go guard. You don't touch the ball. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant will touch the ball. I'm opining on picks that aren't the Pacers now. I apologize. But that's other stuff that mattered to me. And 2 of my 3 guys in the draft, Dylan Jones, Ryan Dunn, gone. We'll see what happens on day 2 tonight. One more thing happened in Pacerland. Obi Toppin got a qualifying offer, restricted free agency coming his way. What does this actually all mean? Because a lot of people did not understand what a qualifying offer was or what the offer really meant. So I need to break this down in more detail and say what it means for Toppin, the Pacers, etc. ahead of night 2 of the draft. And tomorrow night we'll break down what the Pacers did because they will have to make actions tomorrow. Let's talk some Obi Toppin to close out today's show. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen has to be Locked On Knicks. They have Mikal Bridges now. They paid OG Anunoby a boatload of money. What can they do with Isaiah Hartenstein? They still made 2 first-round picks. Who's on the Knicks? Who's not on the Knicks? What is the Knicks now? Whew. That team looks insanely good to me. I mean, I already liked a lot of the Knicks players, but that team looks gross. If they stay healthy, I hope there's a Knicks Celtics series at some point next season. It would be awesome, given what their rosters currently project to look like. Mikal Bridges is on there. The Nets did some crazy stuff. Check out Locked On Nets. Rockets made the 3rd pick, but did some crazy stuff too. There's lots of places to go. Okay, Obi Toppin received his qualifying offer from the Pacers yesterday. I was told, what does that actually mean, right? So let me start by telling you what the qualifying offer is and does, and then tell you what it actually isn't, okay? So to get a player who is eligible for restricted free agency coming off of a rookie scale contract, like Toppin is, he was a first-round pick in 2020, you have to submit a qualifying offer. Tender is the word used most of the time. Tender a qualifying offer. And it's a 1-year, a qualifying offer is like literally a contract offer. It's a 1-year offer at a predetermined amount. The CBA sets what your qualifying offer is. And Obi Toppin, there's another rule called starter criteria. Obi Toppin did not meet it. So his qualifying offer is lower. That's not important to the story. We'll keep going. So it is an actual offer, air quotes, but it doesn't actually represent an agreed to contract. So you submit a qualifying offer to a player. In Obi Toppin's case, it's a 1-year, $7.74 million deal. Just by submitting the offer, not agreeing to it, submitting it, that player now becomes a restricted free agent instead of unrestricted. So now Toppin is a restricted free agent. That does not mean he's on the Pacers on a 1-year, $7.7 million deal. That does not mean that is the deal he's signing or the price the Pacers think he's worth. That's just a required standard operating procedure deal number that they had to do to get him as a restricted free agent, okay? So now they can negotiate with him. They could have anyway without this, but now they can, and he'll be restricted come June 30th. And the biggest benefit of restricted free agency is if you want to keep a guy, you can, no matter what, right? They now have right of first refusal, as it's called, which means if another team signs Toppin to a contract, the Pacers should have 48 hours. I can't remember. They might have changed the restricted free agency timing. I think they did in the new CBA. Whatever. They'll have some amount of time to look at that contract signed with the other team, determine if they want to match it. And if they determine they do, Toppin is now on that contract with the Pacers. And if they determine they don't, they lose it. So remember, they signed DeAndre Ayton to a contract, and the Suns exercised their right of first refusal in like 2 seconds. So they didn't get him, obviously, but that's how the process goes from the other side. So Toppin is now a restricted free agent because he got this qualifying offer. That does not mean that's the salary he will have this coming season. But if he wants to go somewhere else, he has to go through the restricted free agency process. Now, that said, you can pull a qualifying offer at any time, right? The Pacers could rescind it and say, you know what? Never mind. We don't want you to be a restricted free agent for us. We're going to do something different. That's not usual in the Pacers circumstance. Usually qualifying offers are rescinded for cap hold reasons or cap space reasons or just any variety of reasons that don't involve being an over the cap team with a player that you might want to keep. Chad Buchanan said they would like to continue the relationship with Obi Toppin at his end of season exit interview. So I don't think they would do that for any reason, but they can if for some reason that is what is permitted. Or if they use their mid-level exception and they know they're not going to be able to keep Toppin because of the tax, just let them become unrestricted. Do them that favor, right? Some agents prefer that's how that goes. So that's what happened. They submitted that offer. Toppin is now a restricted free agent. They can match stuff to keep him. That does not mean he's on that contract. The Pacers could, the first thing they do June 30th, 6:05, we could get a Woj bomb. They could do it now, in theory. Pacers and Obi Toppin have agreed to a 3-year, 45, whatever, I'm making this up, $1 million contract. That could happen now. That could happen on Sunday. That could happen at any moment, right? The qualifying offer has nothing to do with that part of this. So that it's just a formality to get him into restricted free agency. Now, here's where it's interesting. Him not making starter criteria really lowered his qualifying offer. It would have been higher if he met it, and it's not worth getting into what that is. But he has a lower qualifying offer, which is relevant because if his qualifying offer was higher, if his restricted free agency goes poorly, there could have been a chance he just takes it, right? With a 1-year, $7.7 million deal, I doubt Obi Toppin wants to take that, right? there's no real benefit to that if free agency goes poorly for him. He could probably get more than that from the Pacers for a 1-year deal anyway. There's no benefit for the Pacers to do that, but that's such a low number that it almost entices him to negotiate more than if he had made starter criteria. So this could get to July 2nd, and Obi Toppin goes, man, this market sucks. I'm going to bet on myself, have a great year with the Pacers, get back out there as an unrestricted free agent next year. I'm picking up the qualifying offer. That's allowed. He could sign it, and then he would be on the Pacers for that contract. But he does not have to do that, and that is very infrequent. For teams that have a good relationship with the player, that's very infrequent. Last year, PJ Washington had his qualifying offer sitting out there for a long time and eventually just agreed to something with the Hornets in like August, right? Like it can take a while, but usually it happens. Now, very rarely does a guy sign the qualifying offer and then stay with that team beyond that 1 year. There's like they get a no trade clause because they would lose their bird rights. There's a lot of factors at play. There's a lot of reasons for the Pacers and Toppin to want to negotiate and not have him end up accepting that. So that is what that actually means. The Pacers did not offer Obi Toppin 1 year, $7.7 million. That's not what they think he's worth. That's what they contractually had to offer him to get him to become a restricted free agent. And now he is. So now the Pacers, if assuming no unreasonable offer outside of their budget comes in for Obi Toppin, which is not impossible, but assuming that does not happen, they can keep Obi Toppin. They have the means to do it, and they've done all the paperwork required to do it. But negotiating is the next step, or seeing if there's something else there could be the next step. Who knows? We'll see how that actually shakes out. Seems like he's a good fit. I'd be trying to keep player rights if I'm the Pacers, but I understand looking for upgrades. And I only say that because, man, oh man, Brian Windhorst was on Pat McAfee's podcast yesterday. Tyrese Haliburton's in studio sitting there listening as Windy takes the stage and does the good old Windy performer. He said the Pacers are working. The Pacers are working, not necessarily about tonight, referring to the draft, but they're trying to get Tyrese some help. They're not done working. They're on the prowl. I can't wait to say on the prowl on this podcast for the next 4 or 5 days to see how that goes. Then he added, they see opportunity. They cut to Tyrese. His face is hilarious during all this. Then later, Windhorst says they have assets at their disposal, and I think that they are active from what I understand. I do think the Pacers are interested in some names. I don't think it's going to be an all-star level player. So noteworthy context. But anyway, a good player, a rotation level player, a starter, who knows what that means. But Pacers apparently on the prowl. If they get someone or they upgrade their team, but it gets more expensive, that maybe does not bode well for Obi Toppin. But restricted free agency is now on the horizon for the Dayton Products. Had a great season with the Pacers. Exceeded my own expectations. Looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. And that is draft night 1 for the Pacers. They didn't do anything. They have some options. They could do stuff. They didn't do anything. Lots of moves impact them, and Obi Toppin is a restricted free agent. Tomorrow, we'll have a lot more to talk about. They have their 3 picks. Presumably, they'll use at least one of them. Who knows? So we can actually look at their new look team, what they did, what they didn't do, what it means, if anything, for free agency. Usually the draft, at least in my head, has some bearing on what's going to happen in free agency. And then we shift right into free agency mode because it's Sunday. There's no time to lose. You got to move and get into it. So lots of great stuff coming here on Locked On Pacers. Probably not a guest tomorrow night because we'll be at the Pacers facility a lot of the day, but certainly Saturday, Sunday, if possible, maybe even Monday. There's so much to come. Can't wait. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show and learned something about the draft, the Pacers, whatever. Back tomorrow talking more team building and summer fun. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you very soon.